Why should Canadians believe you'll do anything differently, though, than Justin Trudeau? You've advised him. You've given him advice. You've been a Liberal. So what is going to be markedly different here?
Well, there's several things. First, you started by a few moments ago mentioning that I had 20 different responsibilities. I had 3 full-time jobs. How much time do you think I spent advising the government, quote unquote?
Guys, this is starting to get very dark. I have some information for you that I'm willing to bet you probably have not seen before about this Liberal leadership race and the corruption, some screenshots of things that have been found. Also, the Prime Minister of Hungary spoke over the weekend about the Liberal elitists around the world. So, Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, George Soros, Mark Carney, all of those people. And it really, really put some puzzle pieces together for me. I hope it does the same for you as well. I also have a bit of an unpopular opinion that a lot of people, mostly conservatives, don't really like me for in regards to Pierre Poilievre and Team Canada, but I stand by it and I will explain why. Going to be touching a little bit more on the Antichrist Mark Carney, who was on CBC, as well as some stuff about Chrystia Freeland, Melanie Jolie. Canada is broken, and this is absolutely a psyop. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, like, share, comment, follow on other social media platforms as well. Let's start off first with Chrystia Freeland, who posted this a few hours ago, saying, "As Prime Minister, I will fight to end the housing crisis," which she created, "because whether you rent or buy, you deserve an affordable place to call home." Well, what are some of these proposals, you may ask? Let's see here. Tie the number of new immigrants to housing availability. Conservatives have said that. Cut municipal development charges. Conservatives have said that. Eliminate the GST on new homes for first-time buyers. Conservatives have said that. This one is weird. I actually didn't know that this was a thing. It says ban AI algorithms that use personal information to artificially raise rents. Why is this the first time I'm hearing about this? That sounds wild. We have another one too. We want to build more co-ops and affordable housing. Conservatives have said that. This one was really weird on the list. Give renters credit for on-time rent payments. What? While some people would appreciate that, I'm sure, to me it just seems so lazy and weak and childish. Like, no, you don't need the government to give you some sort of a credit because you did what you were supposed to do. You should just do what you're supposed to do without the government giving you a little gold star saying, "Great. You did so great. Good job. You paid your bills like a responsible adult should do. Good job, guys." Require municipalities to cut red tape and speed up permitting. Yep, conservatives have said that. Well, thank you very much, Miss Freeland, as well as everybody else running, for reminding Canadians that you lied to them for the last 9 years and saying that the conservatives are so bad, because it turns out that you are indeed a conservative.
The media is now saying that I should change my entire platform because of the tariff threat. In fact, the Trump tariff threats have proven conservatives right on everything. It's true. Everyone now admits, or they claim to admit, that conservatives were right on the liberal capital gains tax hike, that conservatives were right on the carbon tax, on pipelines, on LNG, on fentanyl, the borders, immigration, and the need to celebrate rather than cancel our proud history and country.
It is truly baffling to me how much the woke mind virus, this really bizarre liberal elitist think tank mentality, has consumed so many Canadians. Conservatives, liberals, NDPs, whoever the heck you are, it has consumed so many Canadians into thinking that Donald Trump is bad and Canada is superior. Let's just get some things really straight, okay? Donald Trump is doing what's in his country's best interest. He's doing what he was elected to do, which resulted in the truth of the investment nightmare, economic disaster, policy horror show that the Canadian Liberal government has put this country in after 9 years. And that's not Donald Trump's fault. That's not America's fault. I've said this on this show in the past, but there's a reason why you don't have Americans panicking over 25% retaliatory tariffs, because their economy can sustain it. Ours could have as well if it weren't for what the Trudeau Liberals did in driving investment out of this country, investment that gets driven out of Canada and ends up banking on the USA, where things are far greater. There is nothing more shameful to me than seeing Canadians go out and boo a national anthem. It is so disgraceful. And you're completely, if you're a conservative and doing that, you're doing exactly what Justin Trudeau wants you to do. You are making the situation that much worse. I have a tweet here from DC Drano who says, I know this tariff battle has got a lot of Canadians seemingly pitted against Americans, but I want to make something clear for the record. Our beef is not with the Canadian people. It's with the Liberal Canadian government terrorizing the Canadian people. Tens of millions of Americans appreciate the Canadian truckers for what they did to destroy COVID protocols worldwide. We are now fighting your hostile government to help liberate you. And this is a school of thought that I've had a number of times as well. And it's really interesting. If you go and watch American news compared to Canadian news and how polar opposite the conversations about Trump tariffs are, it seems like everybody in the US knows exactly what this is about, exactly what the end outcome is going to be, why this is happening, and what needs to happen in order to fix it. Whereas in Canada, the government, this actually goes back to a video I did a few days ago about symptom versus cause thinking. Because in Canada, they want you to focus on the symptom of the cause being, oh, well, now Donald Trump is hurting us. Screw Donald Trump. I'm going to blame the Americans. I'm canceling my trips. I'm boycotting the US. I'm going to boo their national anthem. But what is the cause? The cause is Justin Trudeau's Liberal government. The cause is that terrible relationship that he has very much built so many years of his propaganda on. I mean, even look at this. Let's just think about this too. So Pierre Poilievre has his Canada First rally. The Liberals went in full swing afterwards to do anything that they possibly could to discredit him. And here is something on the heels of Donald Trump and his tariff threats that the Liberal Party of Canada thought it was a good idea to post and to again use the Republican Party of the United States as a way to slander Donald Trump or smear him, as well as Pierre Poilievre. This is what they are doing, and if you can tell by the amount of boos at that national anthem, among many others, it's working.
You know, imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Fake news.
Fake news.
The left-wing censorship regime.
Woke censorship ideology.
Turned our once great cities into cesspools of bloodshed and crime.
Unleashed a crime wave like we have never seen.
We have to stop with political correctness.
We're not going to succumb to political correctness.
Defeating the radical left.
Radical leftist authoritarian agenda.
And it is infiltrating into the brains of conservatives. There's so many people who have said to me even, oh, I don't support Justin Trudeau, but if you support the US, you're a problem. That sounds ridiculous to me. I don't have anything against the United States. I love what their government is doing. I wish we had more of that here. Their people overwhelmingly voted in a government to stop with the corruption. And there's too many people in Canada that are falling victim to more corruption and more propaganda due to this heightened threat. Critical thinking must be had. And again, this tariff situation absolutely sucks. Why does it suck? Because of our Liberal government and their absolute failure to do their job.
So my point to all of you is we're the canary in the coal mine. If the US administration is doing that to Canada, you're next. And we need to work together.
Ah, yes, let's fearmonger to some other world leaders. Why don't we? That sounds like a brilliant idea, Miss Jolie, and a brilliant way for you to completely distract from what the the real issue is here.
This Canada is broken narrative, Vashi. It doesn't sell now when you have an existential threat from Donald Trump talking about us as the 51st state.
That has been the rhetoric you've seen from mainstream media in Canada. CBC, CTV, all of those other guys criticizing Pierre Poilievre, saying that it's very disjointed for him to go from saying Canada is broken to Canada first. And call me crazy, but dare I say that this actually isn't disjointed at all, because Canada is broken in so many ways, which is why it needs to be Canada first so that we can fix it and heal. That messaging hasn't changed at all. And here is how broken Canada actually is.
That Beijing has chosen as a leader to essentially interfere in Canadian politics. And it looks like those forces are lining up behind Mr. Carney. It looks like what I would call related cyber forces are attacking Chrystia Freeland. So I think already I'm confident saying there's interference in the Liberal leadership campaign.
And with this psyop of, oh, it's Russia that's the problem, even though any evidence that we have in Canada has actually been linked back to India, China, Iran, even though Mark Carney has been endorsed by China, even though Chrystia Freeland has been targeted by China in order to boost Mark Carney's numbers in this Liberal leadership race. We talked about that last week. But the media doesn't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the investments, companies that Mark Carney has shares in, is on the chair of, or even owns, that have actively been purchasing coal in Australia, that actively do work with pipelines in other countries. Why would Mark Carney do that and then also push this rhetoric of climate change in Canada? Oh yeah, Canada has one of the largest reserves in the world. That's a lot of competition for his companies, isn't it? What a better way to ensure that he continues to profit to maximum than by running to be leader and having China help him with it. And that is a massive issue to Donald Trump. Something he has spoken about at length is the Chinese involvement in Canada, which is happening all around us. It's right under our noses, but nobody is talking about it, except for independents such as myself. This is also something very interesting. Found this on Twitter. So remember the whole thing that happened with TD Bank and how they had the largest criminal cartel in China money laundering penalty in banking history. So the chairman of Brookfield, who is the man that employed Mark Carney, he is a Liberal named Frank McKenna. Frank McKenna is also the deputy chair of TD Bank. So, yeah, I wonder, are those dots starting to connect for you now about China, about money laundering, and about all of those people in that elite circle that are involved? How can that be a coincidence?
You resigned from more than 20 corporate boards, I think.
Not corporate boards. Most of those boards were philanthropic or charity.
You are not yet subject to ethics requirements.
I don't have any power, Rosie.
No, but would you put anything out there for Canadians to better understand your business dealings and your financial picture before you're elected?
Obviously, I'm going to comply with all the ethics guidelines, conflicts of interest guidelines, blind trust.
But during an election, before you have a seat, would you be willing to show Canadians what they're dealing with and what you've been dealing with?
Well, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Okay. I was UN Special Envoy for Climate Action. I was chair of chair of Brookfield on a number of philanthropic boards and did a lot of charity and other work. So that's all disclosed in the public domain. I will immediately subject myself, if I am elected Liberal leader, of course I'm going to immediately subject myself to all the ethics guidelines, conflicts of interest guidelines, other guidelines in order to pursue.
As of today, there is no public record at all of how much money Mark Carney was paid to advise the Trudeau Liberal government. Something that he now is saying, oh, well, I mean, come on, how much could I really have done? I had 3 other full-time jobs. However, we do know that he served as an informal advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau during the COVID-19 economic response. How did that go? And then we do know that in September of 2024, he was appointed as the chair of the Liberal Party's task force on economic growth. Obviously, this has raised a lot of concern among MPs because that sounds like a pretty big conflict of interest. The fact that he would be chair of Brookfield Asset Management on top of economically advising the Trudeau Liberal government. We also know that in 2024, an unelected Mark Carney, who wasn't living in Canada at the time, went to China to speak with Xi Jinping to talk about trade relationships. And we also know that Brookfield Asset Management has had around 46 projects pop up in Canada over the last few years, all approved in partnership with the federal government, many of which happened while Mark Carney was advising the Trudeau Liberals. For a guy who seems to really want to destroy the energy sector because climate change, it seems kind of weird that Brookfield would also own 49.45% of the world's largest coal port.
There's no denial that Carney appears to be the choice of the Trudeau Prime Minister's office. It's sort of like if you want to call it a baton pass to a new leader. And it looks like the Liberal Party is doing pretty well with that, if you want to call it scheme right now. And I have already seen on the ground indications, to your point, could the next prime minister be chosen by a foreign state? Look, I reported this morning for the Bureau in a podcast that open source records show Mark Carney appearing in the Richmond riding, remember, where Kenny Chiu was attacked, with the Liberal Party MP who benefited from the attack on Kenny Chiu. And in the crowd, astute observers noticed designated Beijing United Front Work Department community leader. So what does that mean? It's someone in the community in British Columbia that Beijing has chosen as a leader to essentially interfere in Canadian politics. And it looks like those forces are lining up behind Mr. Carney. It looks like what I would call related cyber forces are attacking Chrystia Freeland. So I think already I'm confident saying there's interference in the Liberal leadership campaign.
And unfortunately, the Trudeau Liberals and all of their supporters and many other people who have bought into the same rhetoric are way too busy paying attention to how much they don't like the USA and how much they don't like Donald Trump to care about or even ask any of these questions, to demand transparency. And the media psyop instead is obviously in collaboration with this because they aren't asking these questions either. Rather, they're just pushing Mark Carney. Mark Carney. He's going to be the one. And ever since the United States launched Doge, there's been a lot of Canadians that have been questioning more and more, where the hell is all of this taxpayer money going? Like, why do things here suck so bad in some categories while we're able to then go and give $54 billion to Africa? Why? This doesn't make any sense to us. This doesn't add up. And the Prime Minister of Hungary actually spoke to this and what exactly it is that the liberal elites are doing with your money, why they're doing it, and what their game plan is.
So first of all, I think those who love conspiracy theories are in trouble. They have to find new ones because the old one proved to be true. So that's the first probably.
It's a massive problem in the United States. Yeah.
The second is that it's a taxpayer money.
Yes.
So if we take this whole thing not as a political one, but rather as a moral issue, the fact is that the liberal elite of the West use the taxpayers' money of United States citizens to spread their ideology all around the world and financed in Hungary more than 60 NGOs, paid politicians, media outlets. So it was a plot against our sovereignty and independence. Sorry, made by you.
I know.
Sorry, but this is the case, and the same has happened from the Brazilian budget, which is even more scandalous, may I say, because we pay the money in the Brazilian budget and they finance our enemies at home, So what's going on? So this is the liberal deep state, the global liberal deep state. And now we see how it has operated.
It raises a deep question of motive. Why would anyone want to spread, deadly ideas like open borders or transgenderism? Hey, how about no grandchildren for you? How about, nobody reproduces anymore? What would be the motive for spreading poison like that?
We should be not naive, I think so. One motivation is always money. So that was a way how the American Democrats thought they can open the gates for their business activity. If they change the governments which insisting on having sovereignty and standing and fight for themselves, it's more difficult to find business possibilities for those speculators. Soros is a Hungarian guy. George Soros kind of speculators can find easier way to generate money and to make profit on your economy. So that's the number one motivation. But the second one, don't forget that leftists are always ideologically driven. And they believe certain things, which for us sounds crazy, even embarrassing, frightening. But they believe it. In Europe, probably it's difficult to understand. But I'm sure that the leaders of the left in Western Europe deeply convinced that if they let the migrants in, which are basically Muslims, poor Muslim persons, and let them to be combined with the traditional Christian society, and they manage a kind of integration, the outcome of this whole process will be a better and happier society.
And if we don't realize how all of this is being spun in order to distract and take our attention away from the biggest threat, which is our own government, we're screwed. And Poilievre is not going to win that election because there's very large elite forces at B to ensure that Mark Carney does, so that he's able to further make Canada the breeding ground for whatever the WEF global agenda of the day is, and so that he can clean up Justin Trudeau's mess.
Well, it's over. The race is all over.
All right, segment done. See you later.
Mark Carney is going to be the Liberal leader and the next Prime Minister. For how long, we don't know. But he has got the Liberal Party establishment behind him. He's got most MPs, most cabinet members behind him.
I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. What do you think about all of this? Have I been radicalized, or is this starting to make sense to you too? Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and give me a follow on other social media platforms as well.